of Marketing and Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I will be your moderator today. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. So please write your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we will make them available on our website. Next slide, please. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. Next slide, please. DCL Services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. We serve a very broad client base spanning all industries. Today we are thrilled to introduce Greg Fagan, who is the Sales Director for the Publishing and Financial Industries at DCL. Greg has over 25 years of experience in the publishing industry and has held key positions in production, editorial, and product development at major publishers and vendors such as Wiley, McGraw-Hill, Elsevier, Silverchair, and Alexander Street Press. Without further ado, welcome Greg.
Thanks, Adam, and thanks to all of you for tuning into today's webinar. Content consumption via mobile continues to grow. A 2014 report from Millennial Media and ComScore revealed that 56% of online content in the U.S. is now consumed via smartphones at 44% and tablets at 12%, while just 44% is consumed on desktop computers. The shift to consuming content online using mobile devices continues to accelerate. In the 12 months leading up to this report, the number of Internet users grew by 4% to 201 million. Mobile users grew 9 times faster during the same time period, while desktop users decreased by 45%. The number of digital users accessing the Internet using both mobile devices and desktop computers has grown to more than 70%. Cross-platform consumption is the norm today. Here's a listing from the survey cited in the previous slide of the various content and media types for which mobile consumption has surpassed desktop, in several cases by a wide margin. Streaming radio and games are almost all mobile, and social media and weather aren't far behind. The trend will continue to run in mobile's direction, though I'm guessing that online shopping will continue to have a significant desktop component for the foreseeable future. People like to see large images of what they're buying, and desktop is still the best outlet for that. Social media like Twitter and Facebook are geared more and more toward mobile as a matter of strategy. So it's a pretty safe bet that mobile usage will be in the 90% area in the near future, if it's not there already. Here are the media for which desktop usage remains higher than mobile. You have news with the mobile component of 45%, sports at 44%, food content at 42%, business and finance, mobile component is 38%, TV it's at 33%, travel at 32%, automotive content at 24%, and business to business, mobile is at 20% consumption. Mobile usage continues to grow apace, however, so the day when it surpasses desktop for these categories isn't far off. One category I haven't mentioned yet is health, which at the time of this report was split right down the middle in terms of mobile and desktop consumption. My guess is that mobile has now surpassed desktop in this category. Even for media where desktop still dominates, mobile is a key strategic component for these content providers because they realize that demand will continue to grow. The latest data for Internet usage by device shows that we are now well past the tipping point for mobile usage. Mobile digital media time in the U.S. is now significantly higher at 51% compared to desktop at 42%. The implications are clear. If you're not able to reach your audience through mobile search or display, or you're not providing a satisfactory mobile experience, you'll miss out compared to competitors who are. As you can see on this graph, the growth measured from 2008 until today in mobile Internet usage has outpaced all other means by a wide margin. The trend in mobile device usage, or vertical screens, compared to all screen use, again shows that we're well past the tipping point. As you'll note from this graph, the greatest growth in screen time over the past 5 years has been in mobile. Desktop and traditional TV screen time have remained flat, while time spent on mobile devices has grown significantly. Given this surge in mobile usage, along with the continuing use of desktops and laptops and the prevalence of apps, it makes sense to consider using a code base that works across all platforms and devices, and that language is HTML5. There are native apps with which we're all familiar, like Angry Birds and Uber, which are written for specific hardware programs and stored locally. They work great, but you need different versions for each operating system, like Android and iOS. I want to talk about HTML5 apps because they work across all platforms and devices. A recent research survey conducted by Vision Mobile identified the 4 main routes to market used for HTML5 applications, which are as follows. Mobile browser, web apps or websites tailored for mobile devices and running in a mobile browser. Native wrapper, which are web apps packaged in a wrapper and delivered through an app store. Web to native converter, which are apps written in JavaScript and compiled to native code. And finally, native JavaScript API. These are HTML5 apps written for platforms natively supporting them, like Firefox, Windows 8, and Chrome. Here are some of the results from that survey, which polled more than 6,000 developers worldwide, analyzed more than 30,000 Android Play apps, evaluated 42 HTML5 frameworks and tools, and interviewed 32 top experts on HTML5 versus native. 61% of developers write for the mobile browser. 63% of the U.S. Android Play applications can't be written in HTML5 for the mobile browser because there are some APIs that aren't implemented by those browsers yet. The 37% of U.S. Android apps that could be implemented in HTML5 would grow to 58% if the browsers would add support for APIs like power management and Wi-Fi. 39% of the developers create HTML5 apps for the other 3 routes to market beside the mobile browser. And 49% of the U.S. Android apps could be implemented with native wrappers, 63% with web to native converters, and the 98% with native JavaScript. For those of you not familiar with the term, API stands for Application Programming Interface. They're used in computer programming to provide standards and protocols that developers use to create consistent web experiences. Here are the features of HTML5 that make it attractive to content providers and the developers who write the code. Cross-platform code portability and low-cost development are the top benefits. Developers like to write a single code that will work everywhere, and content providers like the savings that come with not having to develop different versions for different operating systems and devices. So what's holding HTML5 back from utter domination of the mobile space? Well, the HTML5 standard is still under development, so it remains a recommendation until it's finalized by the W3C Consortium. This is an organization that creates and maintains these standards. You can see the latest version at the link provided here. Because it's not a standard, there are differences with how HTML5 works on various browsers and operating systems. In theory, HTML5 should work across all platforms and devices, and it does, but not always in the same way. There's also a need for more access to hardware APIs like power management and Wi-Fi. There are also politics and corporate interests at play, which I'll go into detail about in the next slide. Some developers consider performance as HTML5's main roadblock, but most experts disagree with this view because performance is automatically improving with each new generation of hardware and better JavaScript compilers. The main culprit, in their opinion, has to do with politics, as I just noted, specifically the fact that major browser vendors are also mobile OS vendors, OS meaning operating systems, interested in channeling applications through their respective app stores. Google encourages native Chrome apps. Apple seems to be implementing the latest HTML5 standards, but leaves out performance-related APIs like WebGL, which is used for gaming and other interactive apps. HTML5 for mobile will continue to grow as these issues are sorted out and overcome, and I'm confident they will be. Note that I'm giving my opinion here, but there are many in the digital content space who agree. This graphic shows that the APIs that developers who work with HTML5 have been calling for are still mostly in the drafting stage. Note that only the geolocation API has been officially released for use, with vibration and battery usage in the candidate release stage. The rest are either being drafted or are not being developed at all, with Wi-Fi and power management both viewed as critically important by developers falling into the latter category. These roadblocks still need to be overcome, but I have no doubt they will be because the pressure from content providers will be strong. So in an earlier slide, we detailed the four main routes to market for HTML5 applications. This table indicates the APIs that would make the most difference if implemented for their respective routes to market, showing how many more apps could be implemented in HTML5 if they were available. You'll note that power management would increase mobile browser and native wrapper apps by 13 and 12% respectively, and web to native converter apps would be increased with a Wi-Fi API by 21%. The Vision Mobile survey reached several conclusions and recommendations as follows. Browsers should implement more HTML5 APIs, starting with power management and Wi-Fi. Content providers should push those browser vendors to implement more APIs. A standardized packaging solution should be developed for native JavaScript apps, allowing applications to be packaged once and deployed on any supporting platform. A device identity API should be developed to alleviate the fears related to cookies and other privacy concerns. Developers should be better educated regarding the possibilities offered by HTML5, the real advantages and drawbacks. And finally, a debug API should be developed to enable the creation of a set of dedicated HTML5 debugging tools. So given all this information, how should you prepare your mobile content? It's time to abandon Flash, which is dead or dying. It never worked on iOS, and having to continually install updated plugins is awkward and annoying. HTML5 is the way to go for mobile. Native apps still have their place in the market, and for certain apps are still the best choice, but you should at least consider using HTML5 to create web applications. Because they only have to be developed once, they're less costly, and they give you the option to bypass the App Store altogether. I'll discuss a real-world example of that in an upcoming slide. Cassette, tapes, 8 tracks, and flash. All three of these media need a player to work, and all three media are either dead or dying. Just as CDs replace tapes as a more efficient means of playing music, and digital files replace CDs to do the same, HTML5 is making Flash obsolete. The HTML5 versus Flash debate has been a hot topic among web developers for years, and even more so since Steve Jobs published his now infamous 2010 letter touting HTML5 as the future and Flash is no longer necessary. But whichever side you take, there's no denying that the implications of HTML5 on video on the web are real. For online video, HTML5 offers two things Flash doesn't: mobile capabilities and semantic markup. The growth of mobile engagement, the rise of interactive video for entertainment, advertising, and shopping, and HTML5's open structure all combine to create the future of an HTML5-based web, leaving Flash to eventually shuffle into its place into the retired Tech Hall of Fame. Those in advertising, shopping, and enterprise industries are also beginning to focus their attention on mobile's importance, as well as on Flash's limitations with online video. A recent open letter to advertisers by the Interactive Advertising Bureau, which was signed by several major publishers and ad firms like Condé Nast, Forbes, Google, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal, urges marketers to implement the HTML5 standard for their mobile ads so that they can run on different platforms. The letter calls for all ads to be developed in a mobile-compatible format so that they look great on all screens. And to quote it directly, the one open industry standard format for building mobile-ready creative content is HTML5. According to Digital Buzz blog, 32% of time spent on iOS and Android devices is spent playing games. With HTML5, developers can create games that work on all devices. Although mobile is the most obvious advantage of HTML5 over Flash, there's a feature that lies in the semantic structure that's just as important and especially powerful for interactive videos based on HTML5. Web crawlers and search engines can't see inside of Flash, which is a completely closed container. I want to talk now for a couple of minutes about JAMA Network Reader, which was released by JAMA back in 2013. They wanted to develop an HTML5-based reader that worked across all platforms and devices, and they also wanted it to work across all desktop browsers. Their goal was to use one code base to deliver app experience for all devices, and they preferred HTML5 over a native app for their approach. The challenges involved with that included developing an enjoyable, cohesive reading experience that worked well on all devices. And they had the marketing challenge of explaining to users why the reader wasn't available in the App Store. And providing a simple URL to an app initially confused their users. Once they got all that straightened out, though, the results were good. What they wound up doing was future-proofing their mobile content by using an HTML5 approach. It works on any current or future device, online or offline. Users have the convenience of a native app that doesn't use up storage on their device. The web-optimized site allows for a single content repository, which means there's no need to reconcile a user stash from two sources. So here are the top 10 reasons to use HTML5 now. HTML5 makes creating accessible sites easier for two main reasons, semantics and ARIA, and I'll explain what that is in a second. New HTML headings like header, footer, nav, section, etc. allow screen readers to easily access content. With semantic tags, screen readers can better examine the HTML document and create a better user experience. ARIA is a W3C spec that's mainly used to assign specific roles to elements in an HTML document. It essentially creates important landmarks on the page, like header, footer, navigation, or article, using role attributes. Getting your media to play correctly with Flash has always been pretty much a nightmare. You had to use the embed and object tags and assign a huge list of parameters to make it work correctly. HTML5's video and audio tags treat media as images. It's actually that simple. Keep in mind, though, that because old browsers don't like HTML5, you'll need to add a bit more code to add parameters like height, width, and autoplay. This code is much simpler than that used for Flash, however. For doc type, the tag doctype.html is all you need. Nothing more, nothing less. For developers, this means no more cutting and pasting long, unreadable lines of code, and no more dirty head tags filled with doc type attributes. They can just type it out and go. If you're passionate about simple, elegant, easy-to-read code, then HTML5 is the right format. It allows you to write clear and descriptive semantic code, which enables easy separation of meaning from style and content. And one of the best features of HTML5 is the local storage feature. It's a bit of a cross between session cookies and a client-side database. It's better than cookies because it allows for storage across multiple windows. I can't believe I said something was better than cookies. That's not usually true. It has better security and performance, and data will persist even after the browser is closed. Because it's essentially a client-side database, you don't have to worry about the user deleting cookies, and it's been adopted by all popular browsers. The next 5 reasons why you should use HTML now is HTML comes with several useful APIs like drag and drop, offline storage, browser history management, and timed media playback that allow for superior interactions. You can develop games using HTML5's canvas tag. It provides a great mobile-friendly way to develop interactive games. If your developers have built Flash games before, they'll love building HTML5 games. Modern browsers all support HTML5. Chrome, Firefox, Safari, IE9, and Opera. And the HTML5 doc type was created so that all browsers, even the really old ones like IE6, can use it. Note that although old browsers recognize the doc type, they likely can't use all the new HTML5 tags. Fortunately, HTML5 is built to make things easier and more cross-browser friendly. So in those older IE browsers that don't like the tags, adding some simple JavaScript will let them use the new elements. The adoption of mobile devices continues to grow very rapidly, as we've already noted. HTML5 is the most mobile-ready tool for developing mobile sites and apps. With the death of mobile Flash, HTML5 will be the dominant language for mobile web application development. And finally, it's the future, dadgummit, so get with it. So I said there were 10 reasons, but I lied. There are a few more. Let me go into those now. HTML5 provides developers with new, meaningful ways to organize content. Using tags such as header, footer, article, pages can be organized in a more relevant fashion. What this means for search engine optimization is that search engines will have contextual information about the content for indexing, making it easier to present additional relevant results based on context. This move toward a more semantic web is what many are referring to as Web 3.0. Harnessing new semantic technologies will improve a website's discoverability and interrelationships. HTML web forms have introduced new elements, input types, attributes, and other features. Many of these features have been used in interfaces for years: form validation, combo boxes, placeholder text, and the like. The difference is that where before you needed JavaScript to create these behaviors, they're now available directly in the browser. All you need to do is set an attribute in your markup to make them available. As websites adopt the new HTML5 elements, we'll see greater consistency in terms of the HTML used to code a web page on one site compared to another. This will make it easier for designers and developers to immediately understand how a web page is structured. Many new features and standards have emerged as part of HTML5. Once these features are detected by today's browsers, they can enhance your application. HTML5 makes it easy to build applications with streamlined front ends, drag and drop tools, discussion boards, wikis, and other useful elements. Although cookies have been used to track unique user data for years, they have some serious disadvantages, with the biggest one being that all of your cookie data is added to every HTTP request header. This has a measurable impact on response time, so it's good practice to reduce cookie size. HTML5 uses session storage and local storage in place of cookies. It's not a permanent database, so it enables temporary storage of structured data. New HTML5 geolocation APIs make location, whether generated via GPS or other methods, directly available to any HTML5 compatible browser-based application. And this infographic shows the benefits of HTML5 combined with CSS, which I haven't mentioned up until now, but that simply means cascading style sheets, and those are used to style your HTML5 pages. Give you the benefits of video and audio streaming support, CSS3 based animation, advanced user interface components, freedom from App Store restrictions. There are many benefits to using HTML5. So in conclusion, the growth of mobile continues apace, and content providers need to meet those mobile demands of their users. HTML5 is the best option, though a few roadblocks remain that we've mentioned. It's not yet a standard, older browser behavior, more APIs are still needed. Flash's days are numbered. The App Store can be bypassed, as the JAMA case study showed. And the time to deploy HTML5 is now. Here's a list of resources with links. I cited the Millennial Media ComScore report and the Vision Mobile report. There are links to those. And the Developing HTML5 standard at the W3 Consortium site. We're going to open it up to questions now. If we don't get to a question today, or if you think of one later on, feel free to contact me directly, either by phone or by email. My information is right up there on the screen. And let's have questions now. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Greg. A very informative webinar. The first question that's come in is, are HTML5 apps better than native apps?
I wouldn't say they're better, as many people think that native apps provide the most refined and enjoyable user experience. But HTML5 provides a flexibility across platforms and devices that native apps don't. So it really depends on what your goals are for your apps and what you're willing to spend on development. Remember that native apps have to be developed and maintained for discrete platforms and devices.
Great, thank you, Greg. The next question that's come in is, do you think the APIs that developers are calling for will be developed in the next year?
I don't know about within the next year, but my guess is that within 2 to 3 years for sure. Just as there are powerful companies like Google and Apple with vested interest in native apps, there are other powerful companies in advertising, publishing, and retail that want these APIs developed. It's going to work itself out in HTML5's favor over time, although native apps are going to continue to have their place in the market for sure.
Excellent, thank you. The last question that's come in is, who's to say HTML5 won't become obsolete like 8-tracks?
Well, I understand the concern. I guess the thought behind that is, why should I invest lots of money in HTML5 for my mobile content only to have it surpassed by some other format in a couple of years? Well, that's just the world and the economy we live in. Creative destruction and innovation will always be with us, or else we'd still be traveling by horse and buggy. HTML5 is the best mobile format we have now, and whatever type of content you have to have a mobile component. Just as HTML evolved into XML, HTML5 will likely evolve into the next generation mobile language.
Excellent, thank you. That was all the questions received. I'll just hold it open for a couple more moments. In the meantime, our next webinar is scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, August 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, titled Metadata Matters. It's being presented by Rob Hanna, President of Precision Content Authoring Solutions. And then with that being said, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. This concludes today's broadcast. You'll be able to access the recorded version of today's webinar in the archive section of the webinar archive section on our website, located at www.dclab.com, beginning tomorrow. Thank you everyone and have a great day.